Hi, welcome to YouTube Live. My name is Eric Olsen, founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. The title today is I Need Help with Overwhelming Debt. Okay? So I'm glad to have you here. You can put questions in the chat feature. If it's your first time, please listen to this. And you're going to hear things that you may not have heard other places, and it's accurate information. I'm 74, been an attorney for 46 years now, the founder of Helps. And our specific mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. We do that under a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That law provides if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone, okay? And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. We help you realize that you're going to be okay. And so that's the main reason we have this YouTube live session, so we talk about other things. But you're going to be fine, okay? And you put questions on the chat feature. Don't be embarrassed by anything you ask. All questions are okay. And we should be able to address those questions. And I'll just start off with Pat says, I'm from Missouri. Thank you for what you're doing. A question on a lawsuit. It says I'm to appear for a hearing. So will a judgment be rendered at this hearing? I'm not appearing. How does it go? How does this go in court? Yeah. If you get sued, the way it is they give you a chance to file an answer if you want to dispute the lawsuit. Okay. A lot of our seniors who owe the debt, they don't dispute it, and you don't need to do anything. You don't need to go to court. Sometimes on the court papers, they'll have a certain date and time, but if you read it carefully, that's only if you're going to contest the lawsuit. Okay? So if you're not going to contest the lawsuit, you don't need to go to that supposed hearing. And will they get a judgment at that point? Well, usually the attorney who sued you has to prepare some paperwork for the court to sign, and that might take another week or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. It could take even months down the road. But yeah, eventually they'll get a judgment. But the next thing we want you to understand is that there was a law put in effect in 2012 that provides if someone sues you and gets a judgment and they try to garnish your bank account. I've already explained how your Social Security is protected. So is your pension, disability, VA benefits, IRA, 401k. No, that money can't be taken from you. It's protected. You don't need to use it to pay debt you can't afford to pay. But what about when it hits your bank account? Well, a rule went into effect in 2012 and tells banks if they get a writ of garnishment, they're to examine your bank account. And if money came from a federal source, such as Social Security, that's to take the amount you get each month, times that times 2, and automatically protect that sum in your account from garnishment, regardless of what monies happen to be in your account at the time of the garnishment. So it doesn't matter if you have money from some other source, as long as the balance in there is less than twice what you get in Social Security or federal benefit each month, your bank will protect it without you having to do anything. Now, your bank manager probably doesn't understand the rule. I would guess 999 out of 1,000 attorneys don't understand the rule, but the department in your bank that deals with garnishments, they understand the rule. They're going to protect that money. Okay. So Pat says, I'm very relieved since signing up for your representation, the calls have stopped, so thank you. Yeah, that's what we do. We want to stop the calls. And the whole purpose of Helps is, if you ever do have a question, if you're ever concerned or scared, you pick up the phone and you call us, no matter how often. When you enroll in Helps, you're not our client just one time. You're our client literally forever. So you can always call us if you're worried about a problem or you have a question on any of this area. So this was a comment on one of our YouTube videos. Could have been yesterday. He says, please explain how debt collectors can sell your debt up to 20 years. I think I mentioned that occasionally we'll get a client call us and say, they're trying to collect a debt I incurred from 20 years ago or 30, even more. Doesn't happen that often, but I'll explain. Okay. Yeah, you still technically owe the debt. Under the law, though, they can't sue you. They cannot legally file a lawsuit. The statute of limitations doesn't mean the debt is eliminated. It just means statute of limitations means they have to sue you within a certain amount of time. Typically, that might be like 6 years from the date either the debt was incurred or when you last made a payment. It depends on state law. But even if the statute of limitations is run, they can still try to collect from your call. And so they might sell it to some debt collector. And you could get a call for a debt that's really old. Doesn't happen that often. Okay. But once again, you don't need to worry about it. You don't even need to talk to them. Okay. But they can legally do that, but they legally cannot sue you. Once the statute of limitations is run for filing a lawsuit, they can't file a lawsuit. I've even seen letters from debt collectors where they ask someone to start making payments. They'll talk about the debt, and then the last sentence will say something. By the way, we'd like you to pay this debt, but we can't sue you because the debt is so old. Okay, so. But don't be expecting to get a lot of calls from contact from creditors that are 20 years old debt. It just doesn't happen. I mean, it happens, but it's pretty rare. So this person contacts us from Ohio, and they get $2,600 in Social Security. And then the paralegal wasn't able to conclude with the call, and so the person they called got discontinued, and then they called back on October 15th. Having issues with sons who had her take out some sort of loan for a business that they opened. They told her they would help take care of her, but now they have changed their mind. She went back to work, having a hard time with working, and has a retirement fund. Wants to take out in a lump sum. And we sent her some emails on what helps is about YouTube, our YouTube channel here that you're listening to, and about food stamp benefits and stuff. And then she called the next day, October 16th. And I'll read you what it says here. Want to know if she could use our services for only a short time. Want to talk about the fees for helps, what we do. We explain how you give us your creditors you owe money to, we send a cease and desist letter, and we represent you ongoing. Now, the problem if we just represent someone for a short time, then if someone cancels helps or stop our service, then we have to send a letter to the creditor saying we no longer represent you. And then they could start calling you again. And sometimes people do that, and they'll end up calling us back and say, oh, I got to re-enroll. So generally, people, when they enroll in helps, it's ongoing. The cost is very minimal, and maybe 1 out of 6 or 7 of our clients get our help for free. We make it work for people. Remember, when you enroll in helps, you don't have to pay your debt anymore. You're going to give it to us. And apparently she tried to send letters out herself. Had a bunch of questions on how to do that. At $60,000 in credit card debt. That's a good amount. And if you have a whole lot of creditors, that could be a kind of picture with your phone and email it, okay? Or fax it, or put it on a letter, write it out, mail it. We make it easy for you. Once in a while, we'll talk to someone that's particularly old. Maybe they don't have the internet. They're just, we'll take it over the phone in those cases. The reason we like to have it in writing is because less chance of there being a mistake. Okay? And this person says they've got some mental issues. It's being hard to pick up on things and stuff like that. So we're patient with people. We're never going to make fun of you or take advantage of you or we're gonna help you. And the whole purpose of helps is if you do worry or you are scared, call us anytime. There's no fee. We don't want you to worry. Okay, and so it looks like this person enrolled, made him happy. Okay, so now this person contacted us from Arizona. They get a little bit over 1,200 in Social Security. They say, I was scammed out of a lot of money and I'm scared. And we sent them an email because we couldn't get through to them at first about what we do. And they called back and spoke with one of our attorneys on 2 days ago. We completed the intake. We asked some questions. See, when you call helps, we're going to ask you some basic questions like, married or single, where do you live, what state, self-employed or you work for wages, or you get, what are you getting, Social Security, you're buying your home or renting. How'd you find out about us? How much in debt do you have approximately? Are you buying a car? Do you own a car? Have you been sued? Some basic stuff. We save that because a lot of times our clients will call back, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll in helps. We want you to feel comfortable before you enroll. Sometimes people, and the questions we ask are pretty basic, but we need to know those questions to be able to help you. Your age, for example. See, what we can do to help someone that's 62 is different maybe if someone that's 85 or 88. Ask your sources of income, those kind of things. It says he was scammed and owes his credit union $20,000 for a credit card. He does his banking at a regular bank now and only has that one bank checking account where his Social Security is directly deposited. Very nice fellow. That's what the attorney here for help said. So what does that mean? Okay, this guy got taken advantage of. He was scammed. And the problem with being scammed in his case is that, it wasn't the bank's fault or the credit union's fault that he got scammed. It was his fault. He trusted someone and he got this debt with the credit union, and then he realized that he was being scammed. But the credit union wasn't involved. It was his fault. So he technically owes the money. But he's not going to need to worry about it because his only income was Social Security, $1,200 in Social Security. So when he enrolls with helps, and it looks like he did enroll, he's going to give us that creditor and any other creditors he owes money to. We're going to send a cease and desist letter out to the creditor. They're going to leave him alone. We're going to tell him not to worry about it. Now, he probably feels bad about it, but, he got taken advantage of, and, he didn't do this intentionally. None of our clients get in debt intentionally. I mean, just life happens, so he doesn't need to feel bad. So we'll take care of him. Eric, explain to everyone what happens if you have more than 2 times the amount and a creditor garnishing gets at it. Okay, well, so here's the deal. You don't need to worry about being garnished unless someone were to sue you and get a judgment. Okay? And then they'd have to know where you bank. But if you do bank, if they do find out where you bank or they know where you bank, and there's not necessarily easy to find out where someone banks, your bank looks at your bank account and they determine where the money came from. And as long as it's less than twice the amount of federal benefit, like Social Security, a federal worker, VA benefit, that's all federal income, or even a railroad worker or post office. Those are all federal benefits. But let's say you got $1,500 in Social Security each month. That means $3,000 is protected automatically. But let's say for whatever reason you had $3,500 in your bank account and they happen to garnish it. They had a judgment. Then your bank would hold up the $500. That's over the twice the amount. But if the money that was in there came from Social Security, you could file what's called a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption with your bank, and they're going to return the money with the court, and the bank gets a copy of that. And they're not going to. The court will order that money be released. So when that happens with one of our clients, which is very rare, because most of our clients are pretty good about just keeping less than twice the amount in there, we'll send a copy of the form we file with the court to the attorney and say, hey, will you go ahead and release it without having to go to court? The vast majority of times they agree to do that because it's a waste of their time to go to court, and they know the judge is going to release it. Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, now, person from Ohio contacted us. Their age is 69. They have 30,000 in debt, and their only income is Social Security. And they say, please get a hold of me and help me with my debt problems. So if this is you, if you're having problems like this, you can call us, 855-435-7787, right down there, wherever it is, right there. You can call us right now if you want. There's people answering the phones and talking with people already. Talk to us whenever you want. Okay. We tried calling the person. We couldn't get a hold of them, and so they left their email, and we emailed them. We have some form emails on different areas, and then they called back on November 10th, or we called them, connected. They say they stopped paying their debt about 4 months ago, and we explained how their income is protected, and explained what we do and what the fees would be. And it says that they're planning on surrendering their 2022 car. They owe around $33,000, and they have one missed payment. So, yeah, so occasionally we'll talk to clients that may be buying a car, and they can't afford the car for whatever reason. In this case, they owed $33,000. Their payment was probably $400 a month, and they just couldn't afford it anymore. And so we told them, you don't have to. You can stop making the payment. Eventually, it'll get repossessed, and maybe 3 or 4 months down the road, you get a letter called a notice of deficiency from the lender saying how much you owe, because they sell it normally for less than what you owe, and the balance is called a deficiency, and they can come after you for that amount of money. And if you're in a helps client, you get us that letter. We send a cease and desist letter out to the lender. They're going to leave you alone. So we explained the surrender process. They're going to let the car go back. Sometimes you can drive the car for several months before they pick it up. They can't break the law to pick it up. In other words, if you park it in a garage, they can't force you to open up the garage. We usually tell you to keep your personal property out of there, because if they were to pick it up when you weren't around, and if you had some valuable stuff of your personal property, that it might go missing. But so if you have a car payment you can't afford, you can stop making the car payment. Now, if you want to keep the car, you can do that too, but you have to make the payment on it. Okay, so this person contacts us, and they say, can credit card companies continue to charge interest when you have sent letters on my behalf? Yes, yeah, they can. But the next comment I'd make, it doesn't matter, does it? Your income is protected. No one can touch your Social Security, your pension, your retirement income. They could charge you. You could owe $1 million. They can't collect on it, so you don't need to worry about the fact they're charging interest. I know it sounds bad. Oh no, debt's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It doesn't matter what you owe. Okay, you could owe $5,000 or $50,000 or $500,000. Your Social Security, your pension, your disability is your retirement income is protected and safe, even if they sue you and get a judgment. So So this person's asked, well, what about a Visa credit card owed to the credit union where all our money is? Can they take our money? Yeah, well, that's credit unions are can be a problem. If you owe money to your credit union and you're going to keep making the payment for whatever reason, which you can, no problem. But if you want to stop making the payment to the credit union, and that's where you bank, but you have a loan with them and you want to stop making the payment, then we're going to want you to change to have your Social Security or your retirement funds go into a different bank where you don't owe any money. Because a credit union can offset money from your bank account to pay a loan that you owe them if you're in default. Okay? Because you gave them permission to do that, whether you realize it or not. Now, banks don't do that except for Truist Bank. Truist Bank is like a credit union. They have a form that gives them authority to take money out of your account to pay, but not regular banks. So, like if you got U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, Chase, whatever, and you owe them money and you still bank there, and your social income and Social Security, you wouldn't necessarily need to change to a different bank account. Okay. Simply Social ask, Eric, what do you think? My rent was $1,200. My contract ran out and they charged me $1,600 a month. Just got the most recent rent payment. Went up to $1,861. They just said it was extra fees. Well, okay, if you're on a lease and then you went from month to month, like your contract ran out, then they can charge you whatever you want, whatever they want, unless you're in a place where there's some kind of rent controls. So what's your remedy? I mean, you can move. Um, there are a few states that have, or a few places where they have, restrictions on rent, some type of controls. I don't necessarily think that is a good way to go. I'll just tell you my experience. In my home state, they changed the law and they said, okay, you can only raise the rent like 10% a year. Now, before that law went into effect, landlords were raising the rent maybe just to comply with consumer price inflation, consumer price index. It might have gone up by 3 or 4%. They'd raise the rent by that amount. But when the legislation said, well, you got to limit it to 10%, then some of the landlords were saying, oh, well, I guess we can raise it by 10%. And so they started raising by 10% more than what they would have done before. So you can always choose to move with your feet. I know it's difficult, And we also have emails that talk about Section 8 housing, how to get on that. So if you have rental issues, talk to us. Remember, our main mission is to prevent debt collectors from bothering you. Our second mission is to educate you so you can get your financial independence. That's why we have a lot of information on other areas, which includes, credit, rent, timeshare, what happens if you're sued, affordable transportation, the list goes on. What do you think also if landlord's going after you for eviction, can they make you pay it? No. If your income's protected, they can't. Yeah. So, okay, here we go. Miss H asks a question. When a client of helps has paid all the cost and they pass away and the children have questions about something with the parent, will they still help or explain to that child? Oh, yeah, all the time. We'll talk to, because our clients are older, they're all going to die. We have clients that die all the time. And so the kids might know about help, so they find out about it, and they call us with questions. Or a spouse, maybe one spouse was part of helps, the other spouse wasn't. And yeah, we'll always talk to a kid or spouse about a parent situation. on what to do and why they don't need to worry. You bet. It's part of what we do. Okay, this person writes in, is this for Canada or the U.S.? Well, this is for the U.S., but I don't know the specific laws, but I'm sure Canadian laws pretty much mirror U.S. laws. In other words, your Social Security in Canada is protected, and your pension and disability. And I'm sure that Canada has a law similar to the U.S. law about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, where you can contact the debt collector and get them to stop harassing you. We don't have a Canadian branch for helps. Maybe someday, if we're big enough, we can help someone start it up there, because I do on occasion hear from Canadians. But these laws we're talking about, especially the fact about protected income, they're the same in other countries, Western countries. I'm sure they're the same in England too, because it's a good idea and it's practical. So it's like when one country comes up with this idea, the other ones pretty much follow. A lot of them follow the example of the United States. My postal pension is protected. You bet it is. In the U.S., if it's a postal pension, that's a federal benefit, just like Social Security. Okay. This person says, I would like to know, does the law protect a disabled 65-year-old from state DHS, maybe the Department of Human Security, or an overpayment, demanding that I pay him $1,000 in full within 15 days? Yeah. If you owe money to the state, either state taxes or something like that, they can't get at your Social Security. It's protected. It's protected from a debt collector, just like it's protected from a credit card debt collector. Doesn't matter if you owe the state, you don't have to pay it. And then this person asks, what about child support? Do they have to pay? Well, child support's a little bit different. I don't run into too many cases where seniors owe child support, but technically under the law, they could garnish, for past due child support, they could garnish up to 60% of your Social Security. But once again, I don't see that happen very often. And if it were to happen, often there's things that can be done to mitigate or make it less of a problem. And you call and talk to helps. Talk to me directly, and I'll tell you options you have that maybe help solve the problem. Okay? I just lost $75 fee due to, they said, my credit score is too so low. Is that because of rental? Okay. I'm assuming that's the case. You paid a $75 application fee for rents. So let me talk about that for a second. We have a form letter, an email that we'll send to anyone where they're a member of HELPS. We call it the landlord letter, that explains to a prospective landlord that your income is Social Security or pension, that it's protected by federal law, and even if you have negative entries on your credit, that your income can't be taken from you. It's going to be available to pay your rent. And our letter explains, you show that letter to the prospective landlord and ask them to read it. It's pretty short because see, a lot of times the landlord, they put seniors in with a group of younger people. If you're a younger person and you got sued, they could garnish your income and you could have difficulty paying rent, but not the case for seniors. And that's what this letter does. It explains that that a senior's income is protected. It'll always be available to pay rent. And so what we ask you to do is show that prospective landlord and ask him, is this going to be a problem? And then taking the application, they could say, "Oh, I didn't realize that. This won't be a problem." Or they could say, "Well, we have corporate policies. If your credit is under a certain amount, no matter what, then you could save your $75 if that's the case." You're right. Simply says, "I got the rental letter, which is great, but I think it's more geared toward the landlord rather than the corporate apartment complexes." You're right. If you got the corporate, the person who takes the application, he's not the one making the decision, and it may be they have corporate policies. But it does work enough because I've heard people tell me that it does work. It's just something we're trying to do to help people. Okay. So this person, they write in, they want to know, what about the will? I distribute, I distribute to all my children. So creditors will come back and get it, need information. Well, okay. A lot of seniors simply don't need a will. And I'll explain why. Um, because they've got minimal assets. Okay. Maybe they just have their household goods and a pension or Social Security. So when they pass on, there's not anything to probate. There's no value. There may be some personal property or furniture, things like that. As far as a car, may not be worth a whole lot, and you could add someone else's name to the car with you, so when you die, the car automatically goes to the other person. But if you did have assets that were going to be distributed, and there was going to be a probate, okay, which means someone takes care of your estate and distributes it according to the will. Under the terms of a will, it would say that your debts get paid first before your heirs get anything. But most of our clients for helps aren't going to have a probate. Okay. Now, let's say you're buying a home. Often what you could consider doing is you could add someone's name to the home so that automatically when you pass on, the property will go to that person or those persons. Sometimes people add their children's name to the home so that when they die, the home goes to the kids without there being a probate. Okay, it just goes automatically. We've got emails that explain that. Myself and my daughter just renewed our lease. They went up on the rent yet again. I mentioned to the manager, she said they went up the lowest, which was great with all of the fees. Yeah. My landlord is a management company and they don't care and won't listen to any arguments one may have about rent increases. Yeah, rent can be a difficult problem, but there is Section 8 housing, which is government supported housing, and we have emails that explain how to get on that. There's a waiting list. Although we do have an email that has all the waiting lists throughout the United States. You can apply for other parts of the country. You don't have to just apply for where you're living at. This person writes in, they say, I have a payday loan company that is trying to sue me and I only get Social Security. Don't need to worry. You don't have to pay the payday loan. Now, if you've been listening to me, you'll know that I've explained before that sometimes payday loans may not follow the law. We may send them a cease and desist letter, but they may still try to collect from you or harass you. And if they're based on an Indian reservation or overseas, they may not be subject to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which means they could lie trying to collect from you saying you're going to go to jail or something like that, which isn't the case. You're not going to jail. But no matter what you call. So in other words, we could send a letter to the payday loan police and they may still try to bug you. We'll go over that with you. Okay? Postal intentions are protected. You bet. All pensions are protected, even in Canada. I'm sure of that. So this person contacts us from New Jersey. Looks like the husband is 66 and the wife is 65. They get Social Security, a pension, and Social Security and pension. Husband gets Social Security and pension, so does the wife. They spoke with a bankruptcy attorney, but they own a home in Ireland, it says, that's worth $400,000. And they ask, is that vulnerable? I talked about it yesterday. I mean, I don't know how you, if someone sued you in the United States and you had property overseas, I've never heard of that being collected on. Now, I suppose if you had a multi-million dollars person, but not for a normal person. Um, they may be moving to Ireland within the next 6 months. Wants to know what would be his best way to deal with his debt, which is $100,000. Couldn't file bankruptcy because you couldn't claim the home is exempt in Ireland. They wouldn't give you a discharge. Now, doesn't mean if you got sued that your home in Ireland is going to be at risk. It isn't, like I explained. He's current on all his debt. Okay. He spoke to us a couple times. He says he spoke with 2 attorneys so far, and they are not giving him a clear understanding for his pension being protected. Well, I'll give you a clear understanding. It's protected. It's protected under a law passed in 1974 called the Employment Retirement Income Security Act. Now, if it's not protected under that federal law, it's going to be protected under a state law. In 46 years of practice, I've never witnessed anyone lose their pension because of a debt being able to be garnished. Do we have recommendations for bankruptcy attorneys in New Jersey? Well, you really can't file bankruptcy because you got that home that's free and clear in Ireland. If you file bankruptcy, the trustees say, well, you got to sell that home and pay your debts. And they couldn't force you to do that. But then they're not going to give you a bankruptcy discharge, so you wasted your money for the bankruptcy. He says he's not content with the ones he's spoken to. Okay, well, you can't file the bankruptcy. You got too much equity in the home in Ireland. You don't need to file bankruptcy. It's a waste of time. They tell him his Social Security is protected, but his pension is in a gray area. No gray area. Informed him that most pensions are protected, but he can contact his pension. Okay. Okay, well, let me go on. He's mainly interested in finding one that could tell him if his pension was protected. It's protected. He wants to know when the time where YouTube starts today. And then it looks like he called today. So he's still a bit unsure about income protections. Well, if this person's listening, if someone were to, okay, you go to Ireland, okay, you owe debt in the United States, 100,000. Okay, is someone going to sue you in Ireland? No, they're not going to sue you in Ireland. Could they theoretically do it? I suppose there's a realm of possibility it could be done, but it's the likelihood of that happening is probably the same as, Martians coming for dinner on Friday night. It's just not going to happen. They're not going to come after you. You owe small amounts of money. They're not going to come after you. And as far as your pension is concerned, they can't garnish the pension. I mean, can I quote the chapter and verse? I mean, I suppose you could nail it down and find it, but I think the fact that I'm 74, did 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies, been helped since 2012, and I can tell you, and I've never seen a pension ever garnished, that should count for something. Okay, so trying to nail it down to specific, there are specific laws, Employment, Retirement, Income Security Act is probably protected under that. Oh, okay. Let me see if there's something else here. Question. Okay. So this person contacts us from Michigan. They think you moved to Ireland, so they're going to sue you. How are they going to serve you with papers? They don't know where you live there. I know no provision for them to sue the United States and have service in Ireland. I guess it's within the realm of theory, but it's just like we're going down a rabbit hole. Doesn't make sense. Um, Simply Social says, Eric, I have a question about your services. I signed up 4 months ago. Happy with the service of the question. I'm going to Southeast Asia for a year. My case is 1 summons and 5 credit cards. That not been well, okay. Uh, you know, like I explained, if they sue you and get a judgment, or if they have a judgment, as long as you keep the balance of your bank account less than twice your federal benefits, it's protected automatically from your bank, no matter where you live. Okay? Do I have not been addressed? Can I do everything from overseas, or do I have to worry about anything? We represent people that are overseas all the time. They call us from different parts of the country or the world and enroll. Doesn't matter where you live, as long as we got a phone contact and email contact. I've told this story before. I remember years ago, could have been 10 years ago, when Helps was pretty new. A guy found out about us, and he was living on some little teeny Greek island in the Mediterranean. And when we enroll people, we keep them on the phone. I'll push a button, and they'll get an email confirming they're a client of Helps. And we like to keep people on the line until they get that email. And so I enrolled him. I clicked that button, and he goes, I heard a ding. He immediately got the email saying, welcome to Helps. And I laughed. I said, did you just get an email saying, he said, yeah, I did. I said, they said that could have been more than 3 or 4 seconds. He said, that's right. I said, that bounced, our signal bounced up to a satellite that went to another satellite and went down directly to you, confirming you're a member of Helps. Yeah. So here, this guy calls us from Michigan. He's got 67 years old. He's got 20,000 in unsecured debt. 1,600 in Social Security, 150 pension, and a mobile home that's in a park that's free and clear, rented, space rent. Has had many expensive and bad things happen recently and is upset. She had debt management. She had surgery that took place recently. Ambulance bill, payday loans, the whole gamut. Receiving emails from Halstead Financial in reference to spot loan, so like a high interest lender. Could be being scammed by some of these people trying to get money from her. And anyway, we explained what we do, and I think it looks like she enrolled with Helps. She didn't have anything to worry about. Remember, the whole purpose of Helps is if you do worry, you do scared, you pick up the phone and you call. So this person contacts us from Kansas. I have been disabled and unable to work since January of 2018. And got approved for Social Security disability. I had unsecured loans taken out to afford basically things like food, utilities, and rent. Payments are too much now. I'm interested in exploring my options to discharge the debt. We sent them an email about what we do. Then they called day before yesterday, or yesterday it looks like. They get Social Security disability, and child support. And then the child gets Social Security disability as well. Okay, they rent, they don't have a car or significant other assets. They have automatic payments set up. We told them how to stop the automatic payments. We sent them an email on how to do that. It says we read what we do, read the paragraphs, we quoted her fees, answered her questions, and she enrolled. Very happy. Okay, so if the things I'm talking about you think could help you, don't hesitate to call and talk to us. Okay, that's what we're here for. Okay, this person contacted us from New York. They're 62. He's got a $2,100 in Social Security and a pension with several $1,000s and renting where they live. They're getting a state pension, retired teacher, and they got a minimum of $25,000 in credit card debt that they're delinquent on. And what it says is the note says the phone never stops ringing. Well, we can solve that problem. If your phone never stops ringing because of debts, when you enroll in helps, you give us the creditors you owe money to. We're going to send them a cease and desist letter, and the phone is going to stop ringing. They're going to have to call us. Our phone never stops ringing. Helps doesn't. They're calling us all day long, but we'll talk to them. We'll explain to them that you can't pay the debt. You're not going to pay the debt, and they'll leave you alone. Okay. They're renting and they're buying a car. They have 5 credit cards that have been delinquent since last December. We read what we did. We quoted the fees, answered their questions. That was in May. And then they called, looks like yesterday. Hi. They said hi to one of our paralegals. Hope this email finds you well. We chatted a few months ago about me coming on board, and I'm ready to do so now. Events have advanced with my delinquent accounts, and I have a few more questions to ask. Please give me a call. And we called him back. All of his debts were sold to collections. He got sued by Chase Bank. It looks like he's getting Social Security starting this month. So in other words, we answered his questions and he enrolled in helps. Yeah, that's simple. Eric always answers the phone and the staff is really helpful. I don't always answer the phone. Maybe not as much as I should. I try to, but we've got plenty of people to help answer our phones. But I do talk to a lot of clients. Okay, that's all I had written out for today. This is the last day for the week. It looks like I'm going to end here a few minutes early, which is fine. If you have questions, you can call us. You can even put a question in a comment on this YouTube video. Okay, and I'll look at those and try to answer it there. But I don't want you to worry. And if you have any questions, call us. We'll be back Monday at the same time. Okay. We always ask that you share what helps does with others. A lot of seniors need this help. They have no idea it's available. If all the seniors that need this help knew about helps, our phone would just be exploding. But like I've explained before, there's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors and creditors and even nonprofit organizations to withhold this information about your protected income and how to stop the creditors from bothering you from seniors. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know. But you do know. So you can share it with others. And you have a great day. And I will talk to you on Monday. God bless. Bye.